It can be stressful, but for the most part, it's very empowering. It's very
Yes.
empowering to
Yes.
get to a point where you can love yourself, right? I can look in the mirror and say, "Oh my God, is that a new wrinkle?" Or I can look and say, "You know what, girl, you look good today."
Hey everyone, welcome to Unapologetically 50 Plus. My name is Angela. Today we're going to talk about mental health and self-care for women over 50. And in this episode, we are going to break the silence on the mental health struggles that don't get enough attention. And most importantly, share how to reclaim joy, set boundaries, and prioritize self-care without guilt. But before we get started, I have one huge favor to ask. If you find any value or enjoy our content, please remember to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and let YouTube know you want more of our content. It's free and you're helping us build this community. So thank you. We truly appreciate your support. Okay, let me bring my guest on and let's get this conversation started. Hey, everybody. So, thank you for joining us. While I have my beautiful guest, Miss Robin Gary, and today we are going to talk about mental health and self care for women 50 and older. 50 and older. So, thank you for joining me, Miss Gary. How you doing?
I am doing great.
You do.
Excited to talk about this.
So, before we get started, tell us a little bit about who you are. Tell us a little bit about you.
A little bit about me. All right, I just turned 60 in last July.
Amazing. I love
So,
it.
so
I love
and,
it.
and and I mean it has been a journey, right? And so just in general, I mean, I started out working in the television industry,
Oh,
as a production
okay.
assistant out in California. Uh
Oh, so
in
you
my
had to wait a minute. You had to leave Cali, huh? You got
I
out
had to
that
well,
time.
you know what? I left Cali to help out my family,
Oh,
right?
okay. Well,
My
you got
family
out in time.
was very enmeshed, and when my sister had her second baby, she needed help.
Oh, okay.
And so I then moved across country to Connecticut
Okay.
to help out. I was a nanny for a while. I my, sis-
Okay.
my niece's nanny. And then my parents retired. They retired to North Carolina.
Hmm.
And my sister moved to North Carolina. And I was actually going to move back to California. And the family says, "Oh, please just come to North Carolina with us." So I
Okay.
did. And then my mother said, "Well, I want you to finish school. I want you to get your college degree."
Mm,
In North Carolina, colleges on every corner, right? And so,
right.
pretty much, so I went and finished my bachelor's in sociology and women's studies, and then I was encouraged to go to grad school.
Okay.
So I applied to grad school for sociology and went to UNC Chapel Hill for that.
Okay.
Taught college for several years, and then I don't even want to get into all of that, but needless to say, I had to switch careers, and so I found a lovely work from home job, which I am doing now, which actually pays twice as much as teaching, which doesn't make sense, and that's another conversation.
Right.
Um, but but so basically, yes, I don't know. One of the questions was about reinventing ourselves, and it's not even so much that I've reinvented myself, is that I've had so many different chapters in my
That's
life,
that
and
that's a good thing. That's a good way to put it. Chapters, not necessarily reinventing, but chapters.
chapters, yes.
That's a good one. I like.
Yeah. And I have been dealing with depression and anxiety
Mm.
since my early 20s.
Oh,
So it's been a lifelong uh, journey, right?
okay.
Not only just having different chapters in my life, but the constant through all of that has been learning to manage my depression and my anxiety so
Okay.
that I can function.
Oh, okay. Okay. And that's what we are going to talk about. Because
Hmm.
when you and I talked, before we did the our initial chat,
Right.
that's one thing that stood out when you were talking about and so very open and honest about, your mental health challenges. And on some level, I'm sure we all have some type of mental health challenges. and how do we deal with it, especially as we get older and the stigma of mental health challenges, which has gotten better. It's not as much of a stigma, but we still really don't talk about it. We don't talk about therapy. We don't talk about just how we're honestly feeling because we're afraid of, what people are going to think, or they're just like,
Mhm.
oh, kind of poo poo on it, like, oh,
Right.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's, some of the questions and some of the things I want to talk about with you today. All
Yes.
right. So,
Absolutely.
my first question, so what are some of the unspoken or overlooked mental health struggles that Black women, especially over 50, experience that don't get enough attention?
Okay. Well, I think, depression is a big
Hmm.
one, right?
Hmm.
And I think that the depression is underdiagnosed in Black women of all ages.
Why do you think that is?
I think because part of it is the stigma, part
Okay.
of it is the Black community, because I was thinking about that, and this was in another question that you had sent me. But Black women, we're caregivers, right? We care for
Right.
everybody around us. That's how we're raised, that's how we're socialized,
Right.
right? And so when we are struggling, ourselves, it's the I gotta power through, right?
Right.
Pray it out,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Right.
Right?
Right.
You're gonna get over this,
Right. Just
there's
keep
there's
praying.
nothing, there's
Yeah.
nothing really wrong with you, right? And so
Right.
we tend not to seek medical help, right? Or psychological help. We're just like,
Right.
okay, I gotta power through.
Right.
Um, and so I think that that's a big one, right? We don't seek the help to get the diagnosis to then get the assistance that we need. And then for women at 50, over 50 in particular, right? All of the changes that come with menopause,
Ah,
right?
you
I
ain't never
mean,
lied.
the brain fog, the mood swings, the
Right.
hot flashes,
Right.
the changes in our body,
Right.
right? Just read the extra weight that pops up around the middle, right? That can be
Girl.
very frustrating and you
Right.
can't get rid of it. And so all of those kind of things exacerbate
Yeah.
things like depression and anxiety when you're dealing with them because you get stuck in this downward spiral. It's like,
Right.
oh my God, I don't feel good. I'm not right. I'm hot flush and I'm moody. What is wrong with me? Right.
Right.
And we try to solve it ourselves
Right.
instead of seeking help.
Right.
So I think that just, a lot of us are just coming into our own in our 50s and 60s, right? That's when we're
Right.
becoming wholly ourselves.
Yes.
And so we need to learn how to get that medical attention, right? And
Mhm.
like you said, the stigma is getting less,
Right.
but I still think in the Black community, there's this, girl, just power through,
Just
make it
power
the best
through.
way you can,
Right.
you know. Don't worry about trying to get help and see, medically is something because depression is an issue with your brain chemistry,
Okay. Yeah.
right? It's
Right.
a it's your brain chemistry is off,
Right.
right? And so while there are ways to treat it non-medically,
Hmm.
right? For me, I found, and it took a while to get the therapeutic dose right, but I'm on medication for depression and anxiety,
Okay.
which has really assisted along with my therapy.
Okay.
And really getting to a good place finally at 60, right?
Yeah.
So,
Now, the one thing I want to ask, and we are not medical doctors, everybody,
right,
so please
right,
make
right,
sure you seek a medical provider before we even go on.
right.
This is just our opinions and also things that Robin has actually, is actually going through and is dealing with. So again, we're not medical providers. I just want to put that out there. Um,
Absolutely.
so for you, when it came to getting the medication and things of that nature,
Mhm.
did you start with therapy before getting on the medication, or was it kind of hand in hand? And how?
Oh, absolutely. It was therapy first, right? So I
Okay.
actually started therapy first in my 20s, right? And so
Oh.
I've done therapy on and off,
Hmm.
and then of course, moving across the country and just different changes in my life. And I would kind of do therapy for a while and feel better, and I'm like, okay, I'm good, and I would
Hmm.
stop, um,
Okay. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
do therapy. And I actually was 2020 where I was really struggling. I had just uh, lost my job as a college professor. Didn't know how I was going to make it. It was just a lot going on,
Hmm.
and I went to my doctor, my medical doctor, and
Hmm.
was telling her, and she did this, and so she's actually the one that started me on medication for depression and anxiety because I was having like panic attacks
Hmm.
where you feel like you're having a heart attack and you can't breathe and it's just
Oh,
you're in the
okay.
sweats and you're trembling. And so she started me on the medication and then said, but you have to absolutely start therapy, right? The
Oh, okay.
medication is just one piece.
Right.
And so that's when I reached out, to the EAP program and said, okay, I need to help find a therapist. And the person that I was speaking to was very good. And he said, what kind, are you looking for any particular type of therapist? Right. And nobody had ever asked me that before.
Yeah.
And I said, yes, I want a Black woman therapist, right? I mean, it was finally to the point where I was able to say that because previous to that, all of my therapists had been white women. Some were younger, some were my age, some
Right.
were older than me. And like I said, the therapy was good. But once I said, I want a Black woman, and I got this Black woman therapist, I really started to make progress and it just clicked.
Yes.
So, I mean, and say what you will, right? I need somebody who looks like me,
Right. Who
who who
understands?
understands, the things because I mean, the Black women, we are very unique,
Yeah.
right? No one else in the world has the same struggles as Black women.
Right.
So to have a therapist, right, who can adjust my medication as needed and then understand when I say girl and
Right.
she
And you can speak freely and be authentic. Like you said, you say girl, and your therapist will go, okay, I understand what you're about to
yeah,
say. Just by that girl, today.
exactly, exactly. And a lot of times that's how the conversation starts, because when I see her and she says, okay, how you doing, girl? Right. And so we go on from there, right? So that made a huge difference to me is having a Black woman therapist.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you were when you were just mentioning or talking about the different experiences or the mental health struggles, one thing that you did touch upon is that emotional exhaustion because we don't think about that. We get taking care of our family, taking care of our friends, having to go to work, still wanting to have some type of social life. That becomes emotionally exhausting.
It does.
And we don't think about that because, again, and I've talked about this on my on other episodes, that strong woman, strong Black woman image that we're supposed to have. And
Right.
my co-host would say many times, I don't want to be a strong Black woman. I don't. I want to be able to just, at times just be, just have a soft life. I don't want to have to take care of everybody's problems or worry about how my kids are doing or worrying about my parents or worrying about how am I supposed to put the world on my shoulders and make it a better place.
Right.
And I think it's time for us and I think it's coming to fruition more and more, especially with the new, as you call them, the new regime,
Yes.
that Black women are going, you know what? I'm done. I'm gonna do me. And
Exactly. Exactly.
especially as we get in our 50s, it's like, okay, I'm gonna do me. I've done all I can do. Everybody else can carry the torch. I'm done. We're done.
Exactly.
So there's that emotional exhaustion that we don't really take seriously.
We
And
don't.
then, as you were talking about parents and, taking care of parents as they're getting older, we're in that age range where our parents are either dying off or they're, having health issues of their own. And we have to, to deal with that. Even if we have siblings, sometimes as if you're the older,
Mhm.
sibling, and the woman, you're carrying the brunt of taking care of the family, even if it's not physically, it's emotionally taking care of, your parents. So, and then that delayed grief, because you were saying that in our 50s, sometimes that's when we really realize that we have some mental health struggles. But how long you caught it in time? You caught it when you were younger.
Right.
So you kind of knew what to look for. At least you listened to your body. You did listen to your body, but a lot of us don't. We just push, like you said, we just push through it.
We
I'll be
push.
okay. So how many decades have we been pushing through, delaying getting help? I just started, I like you going in and out of therapy. And you think you're fine, you feel fine, And
Mhm.
then just that little bit of something, you're going, you know what? Maybe I do need to talk to someone before this gets out of control, before this gets out of hand. So, yeah, all those things that we really need to take into consideration as Black women, especially as we get older, and don't just poo-poo it away. Take it seriously
Exactly.
and get some help. And like you said, I have a Black female therapist. She's younger, but yeah, she
Mhm.
I feel more comfortable talking to her and without feeling like you don't really understand what I'm talking about, do you? You know.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah, that was yeah, very much
Right.
Black women therapist. If you can find one, get one.
Get one. Get one. And they're out there. They're out there. I
They
mean, he gave
are.
me a whole list of
Yeah.
like, 'cause, I asked for it and he gave me a whole list. I think it was like 5 or 6 right off the top, in my
Yeah.
area.
In your
And
area.
then he
Yeah.
said, and then if you don't like any of them, here's some women therapists, right? And then I
Right.
mean, he sent me a list of like 20 people.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so, I mean, they are out there. You may
They
have
are.
to, do a
Their
little research.
websites. Yeah,
And
their
you're not going to like
websites.
everybody either,
No,
but never be afraid to say, you know what, this is not working for me. I'm going to,
that. Right. That.
right,
Exactly. You have to
right,
take that into your own
right.
hands, most definitely.
You do. You have to be your own advocate.
You
And
do.
the other thing I was going to say that just piggybacking a little bit off what you said, it's never too late,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
We think, when we're in our 50s or 60s, we should have it together by now, right? I should be, again, the strong Black woman. I should have it together by now. I shouldn't need to go therapy or medication or, I've always felt like this. I've made it this far,
Yeah.
right? It's never too late. Like one of my favorite quotes is, there's no such thing as too late. That's why God invented death, right? That's when it's too late,
Exactly. Right.
right?
Right.
So don't be afraid to go get help. If you're not feeling right, just the menopause alone can do it to you,
Oh, girl.
right? It may not be depression. It just may be menopause, right?
Maybe
That
menopause.
alone can do it to you. Start with your medical doctor,
Right.
right? Let her know how you're feeling, and maybe you do get some anti-anxiety meds, or
Right.
maybe you start hormone therapy or anything,
Right.
right? But
Right.
just don't say I'm just going to power through. I've made it this far, right?
Right.
I mean, great, you've made it this far, but you can always be better.
You can always be better. Right. And
Yep.
your emotional, your mental health. I mean, I always say if you don't have your mental health and you don't have your physical health, you don't have nothing. I don't
Right.
care how much money you have. I don't care how successful you are, what kind of degrees you have behind your name. If you don't have those two things, life it's not worth life and if you don't have
It's
those two
exactly.
things.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
how does the and we you just said this one, so I'm going to change it. How does the idea, well, I guess I can't change this question, of
Go ahead.
reinventing oneself later in life impact mental well-being? And like you said, chapters, and I like that. We go through chapters. Yes, some of it might be reinventing or changing, but they are chapters. And I like when you said that. I like
Right.
when you said that.
And we tweak,
And
right? We're
we
tweaking ourselves. We're
yeah.
tweaking ourselves. So I would say now, right? And on the one hand, I'm like, I get mad at myself and I'm putting this pressure on myself. Really? It took you till you're 60 to figure this out and just, really be enjoying yourself, right? I get frustrated with
Yes.
myself because I'm a
Yeah.
girl, saying girl to myself, girl.
Right. Right.
You couldn't have figured this crap out when you were 40, right? But no, it took me a little while. But I mean, like I said, and each chapter I learned something, right? You read the book and you get to as you're reading the chapters, right? And you're getting it's better and better, right? You're coming to
Better.
the
Hmm.
fulfillment, the climax of right. And so, okay, it's taken me this long. I'm giving myself some grace, right?
Right.
Um, and it's really empowering. It's empowering. It can be stressful, like I said, if you're very self-critical, right? I am very critical of myself, right? That's a habit that I learned at my mother's knee, right? Was
Okay.
with my
Yeah.
mother being critical,
Yeah.
right? And so we all have that mother voice in our
Right.
head,
Right.
and you have to learn how to shut that off, right? And that's one thing that I did learn in therapy, how to shut that mother voice off
Mm.
and just say, if this was somebody else talking to me, I would give them grace. I would say, look, it took you this long to get here. You're here now. You're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Hmm.
What can you do to improve even more?
Yeah.
Right. And so it can be stressful, but for the most part, it's very empowering. It's very
Yes.
empowering to
Yes.
get to a point where you can love yourself, right? I can look in the mirror and say, "Oh my God, is that a new wrinkle?" Or I can look and say, "You know what, girl, you look good today," right? So which
Right.
one
Which
am I
one are
going
you going to
to choose?
choose? Yes. Yep. I do that to myself too. And I've told a story. I just recently this year decided to let my gray grow in. I just turned well, I turned 58 last year.
Mhm.
And what's this 20? No, it was last year I started letting my gray grow in because this is only the beginning of the year. And I had to come to that realization that, you know what? You can't keep dyeing your hair forever. You have to embrace, the aging process. And so, what better way to start is, start with the hair. Let that go, let that grow in. I'm not saying that you have to let yourself go and just say, well, I'm getting old, so this is this. No, you still want to keep, like I said, you want to keep up your health and well-being and all that. But at some point, you do have to accept that, hey, you know what? The gray is coming in. Everything is not as tight and uplifted as it was 20 years ago. You just have to embrace that because otherwise you are going to be so self-critical of what you look like and remembering, oh, when I was 20, well, you're not 20 anymore.
Exactly.
And embrace that. And there's
Right.
nothing wrong with embracing that because there's so many positive things that you can look upon as you get older. One of those things I always like to say is sometimes the F's, you had no more F's to give.
Right.
You learn to say, oh well,
Exactly.
and do for self first before everybody else. So,
Yes, yes. And that's one thing I think that it's hard for us as Black women to be, and I call it being selectively selfish.
mm,
This is what I call it,
mm,
where you have to learn to say no.
right. Hmm.
You have to learn to say no to everybody. I need this, and Auntie, can you? And please over here, and I can't do it. Can you? Oh, sure. Right. And just that's one thing that really has helped me with this, with my Black woman therapist, right? Make a boundary and keep it.
Yeah.
Right, and
Right.
center yourself. If you don't put yourself first, and here's another one that, cliche but so true. When you're on the plane and they're doing that safety thing, and what do they say? When the
Put your mask
oxygen
on.
mask, put yours on first,
Yes.
then help the people around you, and that
Right.
includes the kids and the old people and everybody else, because
Right.
if you pass out, they're screwed. Excuse my
Right.
language. Right,
Right.
they're screwed. Right, if you pass
Right.
out from the lack of oxygen, then nobody gets help.
Right.
Right. So we have to learn how to center ourselves, to set those boundaries, and especially when it comes to family, because family will push you.
Yeah. Of course. Oh yeah.
And just be, like I call it, be selectively selfish,
So
right?
let's be
And
selfish. Yeah.
finally learning that lesson at 60 has really made such a huge difference in my mental health and just in my life in general.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. So
Yep.
laughter. How does laughter play a role in mental health?
You
Well,
know what?
especially for you. I mean, was that something that, because I hear about laughter and healing the body and, the
Mhm.
positive thinking and making sure you're not focusing on the negative. So
Right.
for you, did laughter play a part in helping with your mental health journey?
It does. It just depends. Laughing at myself, I can certainly do, right? Talking with my sister, we certainly laugh a lot. But I do try to find not even so much laughter as just joy, right?
Okay.
Joy. Where can I find the joy in the day, right? And if I read something, I mean, I hate to even admit this, but you know, I didn't grow up with social media. Now I
Same.
use
Yeah.
Threads and Instagram, right? Which where I saw
Yeah.
you on Threads and Instagram, right? So, uh, I do watch the videos of people falling, right? And they crack me up. I will sit there and laugh like a crazy person. I felt bad. I watched one. It was little kids on the slide, right?
Oh,
Going down
yes.
different slide, right?
Yeah, I
Going down.
saw that one.
And I mean, laughed till I cried. I watched that video probably like 20 times, right? So, I mean, it does feel good to laugh. I mean,
It
I hate to laugh
does.
at people's misfortune, and I always say, "Oh, I hope they're not hurt," but they're
Right.
funny, right? So, so yeah, and I do try to laugh every day. Like if I read a lot, I like funny books where something witty. I like witty humor, and
Yeah.
apparently I like slapstick humor too. Watching
Right.
people. Um, but laughter, but just joy, right? Every day I try to find something that I can be joyful about, even if it's just spending time with my dog playing ball and he makes me
Yeah.
laugh, right?
Yeah.
Or I go outside like today, it's a beautiful day here. It's cold, but it's
Mhm.
beautiful, right? And so I'll just go outside. Wow, it's just a beautiful day.
Yeah.
So just taking time for myself, right? Um, to find something that I can appreciate
Do
throughout the
you,
day. And if it's something funny and it makes me laugh, that's great. I don't think any of us take enough time for ourselves,
and
right? Just
that
10 minutes.
yeah. And that's what I was going to ask you. Do you think as Black women we make enough space for laughter and joy and just pleasure? Do you think we
Mm-mm.
make it? No.
Not for ourselves. And I think it's because again, black women we are the caregivers,
Hmm.
right? And it's so funny because it's like we take pride in it, right? And pride in being these super women. Like
Yeah.
on speaking on social media, and I saw this thing. It was a video of this white man, and he was a stand-up comedian. I guess he was talking about how when black women give him a compliment, he's floating through the day for the rest of the day, right? And so I mean,
Okay.
it's even the people that we're not responsible for,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
We make them feel better. We're constantly giving, 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 and we don't stop and say, what have I given to myself today?
Right.
What can I give to myself today? Let me take 10 minutes for myself, read a book, take a walk, take a sip of
Right.
water, take a sip of tea, take a
Right.
nap. Oh my God, I love
Oh,
naps.
and I'm trying to get better about naps, and that's one thing that I need to work on because you're right. Naps are amazing, and I it's just so hard for me. I go to bed early. Well,
Mhm.
I need to go back to going to bed early because I like to be in bed or yeah, at least be in bed by 8:30. It's been getting later and later, but I need to go back to my routine. But trying to take a nap, I hear so many people say, "Oh, I just love a good nap," and you're right, a nap, oh my gosh, can do wonders for
Yes, it can.
for your health.
It can. Naps give me joy. I'll tell you. If I have a chance to catch a nap, like sometimes in my work day, I may have a break between like 1 and 3:30 when I have my next meeting. And I may get phone calls in between there, but I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna close my eyes for 20 minutes and just refresh myself. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It works. Naps work. But just like I said, anything, anything.
Yeah.
And I think that really, since November 24, we kind of touched on this. I think Black women are starting to say, you know what? I'm taking care of me,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so that is a great thing, right? That just taking 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes for yourself in a day.
In a day. And hopefully
Don't
every day. Hopefully make it
oh
a
yeah, every
habit,
day
do it
for sure.
every day, not just once in a blue moon, but every day.
Every day.
15, 20 minutes, like you said. That's not gonna, it's not gonna take that much time out of your day, but I'm sure doing that and being, and being consistent just does the body, your central nervous system just does it so much good, you know.
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna say another thing, if you can just make a ritual. So like I used to just get up, I'm like, take a shower first thing in the morning. I gotta and with some of the stuff that was going on, I wasn't able to, stick with that. So I
Mhm.
started taking my showers at night. And I actually have made it a ritual. So I put on my old school music. I don't care about any of the stuff that's out there. Lately I've been listening to In Vogue, the like
Uh-huh.
Born to Sing, that first album.
Yeah.
And I go in the bathroom, I light my sage, I put
Mm.
on some good music and some Luther, somebody, Marvin Gaye, somebody
Oh my
that's gonna just have me vibing, 10
Right.
Pendergrass, anybody, right?
Right.
And get in the shower and that is how I'm ending my day, right? I'm just
Okay.
ending my day, then putting the lotion on, getting into bed. Then when I get up in the morning, I can just jump in the shower real quick, rinse off, come
Yeah.
out, and I'm ready to face the day. But
Yeah.
take that is another time that I'm deliberately taking from. So some people, that's the only privacy you get was in the bathroom, right?
Sometimes, yeah,
Depending on your
depends.
household, right? That may be all you've got. So
Right.
take that shower.
And
Make
yeah,
that shower time a ritual. Make it for you. Whatever you light a candle, whatever you have to do.
right.
But take some time for yourself.
Right. I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
So if mental health support for Black women over 50 looked exactly how it should, what should it include?
Hmm. Well, I think you need, the medical piece, right?
Mhm.
So the medical doctor or a therapist who is able to dispense meds,
Okay.
right? Um, because I think that because you want to make sure that there's nothing else going on, right? So I
Okay.
think the medical piece is important.
Okay.
Um, therapist, and if you could have a support group, right? Or
Okay.
some other, other women around you who are, whether it's online or,
Mhm.
whatever, a support group. Because, the other thing is when we do center ourselves, we're like, it's only me, right? I'm the only one that feels like this. I'm the only one that's going through this,
Right.
right? And there are women all over the place who are going through the same thing, right?
Hmm.
So we tend to feel alone and then we isolate even more,
Right.
right? So having a support group or having access to a support group would
Hmm.
be great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really I think the therapy for me,
Right.
and having a therapist that looks like me who can understand, who's had some of the same experiences that I've had in life,
Yeah.
has really been a big piece. So affordable therapy,
Yes.
right?
Yes. That's the tough
Affordable
part.
therapy.
That's the tough part. And I know for for, when you go through your insurance, sometimes it's hard to find those black therapists. So you
Yes.
have to go outside and then you're paying out of pocket to find
Hmm.
the therapist that's going to work for you. Because not, like you said in the beginning, not all therapists are going to be for you, that you are going to feel comfortable with. Because if you're not comfortable or you don't feel that you're getting any value out of this, you're not going to open up and get the help that you need because this is about you. So
Right.
I totally agree. It needs to be, more accessible and affordable. And if you do have therapists, or if you are going through your insurance, let's have more black therapists. Let's have more female black
Absolutely.
therapists. And that's
Absolutely.
been a struggle for me. So I had to go outside to find therapists. So I'm paying out of pocket.
Right.
I also think a shift in messaging that reminds Black women that it's okay to rest, it's okay to feel vulnerable, and to prioritize us.
Yes.
Prioritize yourself. And I think that we need to, if you have a good therapist, they are going to remind you of that, hopefully. Or, just like you said, have your ritual. And if your ritual means you have some type of positive affirmation sitting in that bathroom every time
Hmm.
you get out, or wherever, wherever whatever your ritual is, having that positive affirmation to remind yourself it's okay to rest, it's okay to feel vulnerable, it's okay to put you first.
It
you know
is.
so
It is.
um
And it's okay not to be okay.
it's okay to not to be okay. Definitely.
You
It's
know,
okay, right? Don't let
it's
people
okay.
make
I
you
think a lot of
right.
times we put that pressure on ourselves, I'm not okay, but I gotta power through,
Right.
right? I have to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And in order for me to do X, Y, and Z, I can't stop and worry about myself right now. And
Right.
that's totally the wrong
Right.
paradigm.
Or coming down on yourself because you're not okay. Well, what's wrong with me? Why am I feeling this way? I have no reason, or you know yeah, I have no reason to feel this way. So why am I feeling this way? No. It's like you said, it's okay to not be okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So when we talk about grief, especially from losing loved ones or relationships, or even past versions of ourselves, because we, like you said, we all have chapters. Um, how does it affect mental health? And, what are some healthy ways to process it?
Grief is rough. I mean, because it looks different for everybody. So,
Right,
and I mean, you think you're over something and then it'll just come hit you out of the blue. Right. And so it's rough and it can set back your mental health journey. But I guess it kind of depends on where you are.
right,
I mean, I'm not even really sure how to phrase this. So, like for example, we all have this idea of what grief should look like, and there's a certain timetable of when you're going to get over it
and a
and
certain
things like that.
process.
And
Yeah,
right, it's the process, and then it's supposed to be done, right? So, for
right,
example, when I was teaching college a couple years ago, and I had a dog, a beloved dog, right, and she just died suddenly in the middle of the night. I mean, it was traumatic.
right,
And I canceled class for the next 2 days because I just couldn't deal.
right.
And my mother's like, "Well, it's just your dog. You've got to get over it. You need to go to work. You need to." So it's just like,
Mm.
mm,
Yeah,
it again, there's no one way, right? And it's in other words, listen to yourself, right?
right,
Listen to yourself. center yourself, take care of yourself, ask yourself, what do I need, right? I have this image a lot of times in my head, we all have multiple versions of ourselves, right?
Right.
And so I actually make these little characters in my head, right? And I have a character that's little Robin, right? It's me as a little girl. What do I need? What did I not get? Right?
Right.
And so when these things happen, I'm like, okay, let me comfort little Robin, right? This is
Right.
the inner child. Let me comfort her. Let her know, you know what? It's going to be okay, baby. Right? I
Right.
mean, it's going to be okay. You have to put yourself first, recognize the grief, right? And recognize it. A lot of times we're like, I got to push this away. I
Right.
can't deal with this right now. You have to move through it the way that you move through it. You can't push it to the side because that is going to make any kind of struggle worse,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's just going to make life harder in general if you don't deal with the grief that you're feeling, right?
Exactly.
And so, just like, past versions of ourselves, you said, right? So, me in my 20s, right? And I was always so critical of myself. And I look back now and I'm like, damn,
Right.
was good. Why did I not do
Why
X,
did
Y, and Z? I was hot. I was this. I was right. Um, and now now here I am with, this fat roll around my middle, and I can't wear that dress anymore. I can't go out and do X, Y, Z. Right. And so you do get hit with these things, as a natural part of the aging process, right?
right? Yeah.
Um, but you got to recognize it, and you don't have to make it a big thing, but you have to recognize it and kind of sit with it, right? And recognize it. And okay, it's okay to regret that I didn't do this in my 20s. It's okay to still miss my grandmother that I lost 20 years ago, right?
Right.
That I talk to every day anyway, right? But
Right.
all of a sudden I get a smell or something that makes me think of her, and it's just I feel that loss all over again. Um, you've got to, I guess, recognize it and not embrace it necessarily, but work with it, work through it,
Right. And I
you
think
know?
the one thing that you said is our past identities, in our 20s. And sometimes the loss of that, well, this is how I was, and reliving the past I'm sure can bring, some type of grief.
Hmm.
And just in midlife, grief in midlife, it's complex and it's layered because we have gone through so many chapters. So it's not just about, the loss of loved ones, but it could be also the loss of like past identities, relationships that we look back on and say, well, I wish I could have, would have, blah,
Hmm.
blah, blah. Or even physical abilities. Like you said, losing that weight, not being able to maybe run that marathon that you could run 20 years ago. You can't do that anymore. But
Right.
just that unprocessed grief can manifest into, depression and anxiety. And
Hmm.
even it can hit us physically. To you, what's the biggest misconception about aging and mental health?
Let's see. Well, I think just society in general, right, and media in particular, seem to think that after our 30s, right, we should just fade away and be quiet, right?
Mm,
Women, we don't see there's something in sociology called symbolic annihilation, right? Which is talking about when you don't see images of yourself reflected in the media, it's almost as if society's saying you don't exist, right?
mm,
And when we do see older women, right, they're they're the bitchy, or they're the foil of the joke, or the butt of
right,
the joke, things like that. So, and when the reality, like I said earlier, is a lot of us don't really even hit our stride, right, and come into
right,
ourselves fully until we're in our 50s, and we've dealt with all of these mental health issues all of our lives, a lot of times undiagnosed,
right,
right? And so I think the biggest misconception is that you should have it all together by the time you're 50, right? It should be,
right.
my my best friend and I, from high school, we used to say, girl, by the time when we're 50, it's gonna be on, right? And when we both turned 50, she said a thing. She says, okay, girl, when we're 60, we're gonna right. And so
Right,
it's like we keep pushing it back because we're still not where we feel like we should be,
right,
right? So I think one of those misconceptions is that all right, if you don't have it together by now, it's just too late, or just don't even worry about it, or we're still worried about the societal images of us instead of defining ourselves for ourselves.
yes, yeah. And I think when you were saying that, Now I lost my train of thought. See, that's another thing that happens when you get older. You lose your
It
train of
is.
thought.
It is.
It'll come back to me. I just totally lost my train
CRS.
of thought.
Can't remember.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. So I think we have we have an expectation that we should be at a certain place at a certain time in life.
Hmm.
And then when we don't get there, we're so disappointed that, okay, I'm not making this amount of money, or I don't have this, or I'm not there. But it's like, excuse me, it's like, why are those expectations put on why are we putting those expectations on ourselves instead of just enjoying the process
Yes.
and growing, being better? And what are those expectations? And can you tamper down those expectations because you hit 50 or 60 or whatever, and you have grown, you have developed, you are hopefully better than you were 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So I think we have to pull back on the expectations of where we should be when we're a certain age, and just realize that it could be a whole lot worse, but I'm growing and I'm continuing to grow. And don't let those societal expectations be a part of who you are. Don't let it be a part of, you know, your life's venture. Create your own, like you're saying, create your own, create who you are, and don't let society tell you who you are, because that will screw you up in the head. Oh, I
Oh, yeah.
I didn't achieve this at a certain age. I didn't get my degree until I was 45. And I
Hmm.
and I but I got it for me. I didn't get it for anybody else. I didn't get it for a career. I got it for me because the degree I got has nothing to do with any career I've ever been in, but I did it for me. And to some
Hmm.
people, like, oh, you just, you got your degree at that age. So
Yep.
again, it's that societal expectation, and especially for Black women, we think we're expected to do so much more. And I wonder how much of that, yes, it's society, but how much of that pressure we're putting on ourselves, that we have to be so much better than everybody else. And yes, I know it is, especially in America, I know it is a thing, but can we as Black women pull it back a little bit and realize that where are we going to define what our expectations of ourselves are, so we're not messing up our own mental health? So what are some creative or unconventional ways Black women over 50 have been able to maintain or improve their mental health, or could, maybe you don't know, have been able to maintain, but what are some ways they can improve their mental health that are creative or unconventional? I know we talked about therapy, we talked about, medication, but
Right.
what are some other ways maybe that you've tried?
Well, I think just the journaling,
Hmm.
right? I've done journaling.
Yeah.
um, Rituals, right?
Oh,
So in other words, that
you're
really, the hiking, right? I
mm,
can't run the marathon, but I can hike, right? And
right,
just
right.
get out in nature and just take a minute,
Yeah,
right, to
right.
appreciate it. And nature is just amazing, right? It is just
Oh,
amazing. It's
yes, yeah.
I mean, one of the most, spiritual and treasured experiences. I was hiking and I actually stopped and I laid down in the grass. It was nice. It was high, tall grass, and a hawk just dove. I mean, he wasn't diving at me, but he just dove. And I mean, he came close to me and then went back up. I could hear the wind in his feathers. I mean, it was
Oh,
just amazing. It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. And I treasure that memory. And sometimes I just think about that. Think about that hawk you saw,
yeah, yeah.
right? We all have good memories. Like I have a memory of when my sister and I were little and we were on that scramble it ride. The one that goes around, you sit in the
Right.
thing, right?
Yeah.
We were little, probably, 7 or 8. Um, and it was the last ride of our vacation at the beach in Atlantic City on the boardwalk, and the way the sun hit. And I mean, that memory stuck with me. It was like just pure joy. And sometimes I'll be outside and the sun will hit at that same angle, and it takes me right back to that
Oh, okay.
memory. And
Yeah.
I get that surge of joy. So, I mean, there are always things that we can do, right? I do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? What are 5 things that I really enjoy? What are
Mhm.
4 things that really made me happy,
Right.
right? What are 3 of my best memories,
Yeah.
right? What
Yeah.
are 2 things that I want to do for myself? And what is 1 thing that I have done for myself today?
Okay. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I like
Right,
that. I like
right.
that.
And one thing that does, it was an actual technique that my therapist taught me for anxiety.
Hmm.
And then I switched it up just to change, my mental, because for anxiety, it's, 5 things. It's supposed to center you and bring you back to the moment, right? So
Okay.
what are 5 things that I can feel, right? I can
Okay.
feel the ground under my feet, the way my pants fit, I
Okay.
feel my skin, right? The wind on my skin. But yeah, I center it or I make it about me, right?
Okay.
To center
Okay.
myself and to pull myself back in, right? And so anything that you can do to kind of take yourself out of that mental rat race, or what do you call it, the wheel,
Right.
and just kind
Right.
of bring yourself back and center yourself, right? So,
Right.
what's something I did for myself today? And if you haven't done anything for yourself that day, that's when you say, "All right, I'm getting up and I'm doing blank.
Right.
I'm going to have a glass of wine. I'm going to go take my shower now. Nobody call my name. I'm putting my phone on do not disturb." Um, but hopefully you have, at least by the time you get to that point, you've done something for yourself. Whether
Right.
it's I got up today and put on my clothes, even though I didn't feel like doing it,
Right.
right? You got to give yourself grace. When you're dealing with depression, a lot of times you don't want to get up, right? You just want to let me just lay in the bed and just take a nap or go back to sleep or wallow, or I'm just going to veg in front of the TV and not do it. But if you get up, right, and do 1 thing for yourself, you're going to feel that much better, right? And if you can do
Okay.
1 thing for yourself, you can do 2 things for yourself,
Right. Right.
right? And you could do
Okay.
so again, but give yourself grace. What did I do for myself today? Well, I got up, daggone it, and took a shower and got dressed and maybe put on a little lipstick.
Yeah. Maybe
Maybe that's
you
all I
could.
can do for myself today.
Right.
Tomorrow, I'll be able to do a little more.
And keep layering it on there.
Exactly,
Oh, I also think sound healing and music therapy,
for sure.
because I love the bowls,
Oh,
the I forgot, yeah, the bowls.
right. The praying bowls with the metal
Yes,
bowls where you have the little.
yes, I love that sound. Oh, that sound to me, when I hear it, it just does something to my whole body because it's just very soothing. And
Mm-hmm.
something about the certain sounds of the different bowls is just very calming, calming to me. And then another thing, unplug from social media because we are not the generation of social media.
Right.
But I know I'm pretty good about it because I'm not really, that into the social media. I do it for, my YouTube channel and stuff like that.
Right.
But just unplugging from social media and not getting involved in everything that everybody's talking about because there's so much. You're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and you're seeing so much negative. Yeah, there's some good stuff in there too. And there's some funny things, like you said, the babies on the slide.
I know, I still
But
feel bad I laughed at that, but hey.
my husband does too. So, because
Okay.
Angela, look at this.
Yeah,
But, just unplugging from social media, because that can be such a mental drain
it really
on
can.
you.
It really
And
can.
dance therapy or just movement-based healing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, because I like yoga, I was doing Pilates, and that was really nice. Just
Mm-hmm.
doing the Pilates and the slow movements and everything like that. And then my favorite is traveling, even if you're traveling by yourself, even if it's a day trip to, in our case, maybe a day trip to Napa or,
Right.
whatever floats your boat to the beach or whatever.
Yes.
Um, that's really, I think, some creative ways to improve your mental health. And another thing, and everybody's not into it, they might not believe it, but grounding, just going outside and putting your bare feet on some grass.
Mm-hmm.
It's the grounding, it's getting that energy through your body. So
Yes.
there's a lot of creative ways to help your mental health. And I mean, and including, like we said, definitely getting the therapy, and if need be, getting the medication.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no one set way to
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, there's no one set way. You have to do a number of things, and for some people it might be five or six things, some people might be two, but you got to find what works for you so
You
you can
do.
get yourself, in that right state of mind, so so you can live life joyfully.
Exactly. And everybody is not going to be the same, right? What works for
No.
me is not going to necessarily work. So
Mm-mm.
you kind of have to experiment almost and
You
see
do.
what works for you, what helps you. Um, and one thing you have to do is find your triggers, right? So when you were talking about social media,
Yeah.
so like I realized that if I look at social media before I go to bed, I don't sleep well, right?
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
know, right? It's like, nope, I'm turning off the TV. I don't watch any news at all. I haven't seen one news
Yeah.
broadcast since November, right?
Okay.
Of any type.
Yeah.
Um, but like if I'm watching TV, like sometimes I'll watch something like, oh gosh, I started watching The Paradise. My sister told me to watch
Oh,
it.
yes, we just finished that one.
So I didn't finish it yet, but I started watching it and I was actually getting agita, right? I'm like, what is going on here? What
Oh,
is
okay.
happening with this guy? Right. And so sometimes it takes me a long time to watch a show because I'll have to turn it off. I'm like, okay, I need a little less reality in my entertainment, right?
Right.
So and
Right.
so, I know my trigger. So I'm like, okay, let me go read a book, right? Or let me play ball with my dog, or let me, go sit on the porch and look at the moon if it's not too cold, right?
Right.
And so things like that. So just knowing my triggers, I think has
Knowing your
been a
triggers.
big
Yeah.
help.
That very true. Know your triggers, um,
Hmm.
because I think sometimes we don't really pay attention to that, and we just go, oh, okay, and we don't pay attention to how our body feels too, because that's another thing. How if you're watching something or you're reading something or you're scrolling and you
Hmm.
start feeling something, tensing up in your body, you're not paying attention to that. And that's your body telling you, look, stop.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
affecting you on some level, so you need to stop and you need to maybe remove that from your life, whatever it may be. So, yeah, very, very true. So, if younger generations could learn one thing from Black women over 50 about resilience and mental health, what should it be?
Hmm. I think okay, two things. So my all-time favorite saying is be where your feet are,
Mm,
right?
expound on that.
Be where you are. Stop worrying about what I did in the past.
Okay.
That's gone. Stop worrying about what I'm supposed to be doing in the future. That hasn't happened yet. You have to be where your feet are. Don't, enjoy the present. In other words, ground yourself in the present,
Gotcha.
right? And you know how sometimes somebody will say something to you, and this was the wife of my boss 40 years ago, and she said that to me. She said, "Be where your feet are."
Hmm.
And it just, I mean, it hit me like a bolt, right? I was like, "Oh my God. Yes, she's right. I can't do anything about what happened in the past. I can learn from it, but that's it. I can't go back and change it. This woulda, shoulda, coulda is not
Right.
right." And if you are where your feet are and you can start to appreciate yourself, right? Like I'm saying, I look back now and I'm like, I mean, Betty Davis is one of my idols. I love Betty Davis movies, right?
Okay.
And I saw an interview of her, old Betty, right? Old
Yeah.
wrinkly Betty, and she's like, I always thought my boobs were too small and my eyes were too big and my this and my that. And she says, and now I look back and I was the best damn looking thing in Hollywood at the time, right? And so and I thought about that. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't appreciate when I was in my 20s and a size
Yeah.
five, you
Right.
know,
Yes.
and I didn't appreciate it. I was so busy thinking, okay, I need to be thinner, right? Or I need to
Yeah.
be this, or I need to be that.
Right.
Appreciate, right? When I was teaching, and when we would talk about gender, and my girls in my class, and I would say, ladies, you are beautiful exactly the way you are. And I mean, you would see they would just start sitting up straighter in their chairs, and
Yeah.
because I would give them encouragement. You are perfect. You
Right.
may want to lose a little weight, but you know what? Your thighs are not supposed to, your bones are not a fashion accessory, right? If your thighs
Right.
touch, if your thighs touch, they touch,
They touch.
right? Stop letting other people dictate how you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to have, what you're supposed to look like, etc.
Right.
So I mean, if could go back to my younger self, I would tell her, my 20-year-old, be where your feet are. Appreciate what you've got, where you're at. Life is a journey.
Right.
It's a journey. The stuff that you're so stressed about now, that's going to be gone. It's not going to,
Right.
you
Enjoy
know,
the process because
enjoy
it,
the process
yeah.
and just appreciate what a unique, beautiful divine creature you are,
Mhm.
right? The world puts enough expectations and pressure and stereotypes on Black women as it is. We need to stop doing it to ourselves.
Right. And to each
We need to
other.
start appreciating who we are, look, and where we are,
Right.
right? And where we are. It's like, yeah, could I be better? Could I have this? Or could I be, retired to the Riviera by now? Sure, if I had done X, Y, and Z. I didn't.
Right.
This is where I'm at. And you know what? I'm in a good spot,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this too shall pass, right? Younger
Right.
women, this too shall pass.
It
But
shall.
take care of yourself first. Put
Right.
your oxygen mask on first. If I could just go back, just, take care of yourself first. Everything else will follow.
Exactly. Exactly. So I have one last question for you.
Okay.
What does it mean to be unapologetically 50 plus to you?
Well, we talked about earlier, I have no more blanks to give, right? So that's a big one. Um, Willing to experiment, right? So um, many, but back in my 20s, I used to have my hair braided all the time.
Hmm.
And then, getting into the professional sphere, right? Then it was like, okay, no, I gotta go get the Brazilian
Right.
flat iron, or the
All
Dominican
that.
pressed out blowout, and because I got to look professional. And my mother was, of course, so she was like, oh, you can't wear your hair naturally curly, you can't, you got to get your hair done. And she would even tell me sometimes if she saw me, and she's, you know what, I'll give you money to get your hair done, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so now I'm like, you know what? I used to love my braids.
Hmm.
I'm somebody who braids my hair, and I'm like, every month I'm like, girl. you know, changing my wardrobe. I mean, just being able to experiment with myself, tweak different things, learning to accept myself. Like like I said, the little bulge around the middle. Would I like that to be gone? Yeah. Um, I'm kind of lazy, right? I don't know how much work I want to do for this.
Right.
I'm certainly taking care of myself, but it's like, is one chocolate bar gonna kill me? I mean, from my lips immediately to the bulge around my middle or to my face. No, I'm gonna eat the
Right.
chocolate bar, right? It's just I am taking care of myself.
Right.
Being unapologetically 50 plus, taking care of myself first, creating boundaries and maintaining those boundaries, which is hard.
Yeah.
It is hard, especially when it comes to family. But like I said, if I don't take care of me, then everybody else, if I get emotionally exhausted
Hmm.
or physically ill, because you can get
Right.
physically ill from this stress, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Who's going to take care of me? Nobody, right? It's like, oh, figure it out the best way you can and
Right.
then get back to what you were doing. But no, so I'm taking care of me first,
Right.
and finally realizing that and putting myself first in my life is definitely empowering. It's definitely empowering. And if it took me this long to get here, oh well, it took me this long to get here. I'm here now and I'm enjoying the ride.
Exactly. Yes. I like that. Thank you.
Hmm.
All right, Miss Robbins. So thank you so much for being on. This has been a pleasure. I actually want you to come back because I have another, when we were talking earlier, parents, taking care of our parents, because that's
Aging
something,
parents.
aging parents, because that's something we don't know about until you're there.
Until you're there, right? It's
And,
just a total shock.
and everybody's experience is going to be different. So I want to have you back on and we can talk about that. So, because this has
Absolutely.
been a wonderful conversation. So thank
It
you so
has. I've
much.
really enjoyed it too.
Thank you so much for being authentic, for just, just being able to speak honestly on, your journey through mental health. So I appreciate it. So thank you again. I look forward to
Thank you.
bringing you back. Thank you guys for joining us. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave a comment. Let us know, how do you have a mental health journey? If so, how do you deal with your mental health? I really love to hear, some of your comments. So thank you guys again. Come back next week. I'll see you then.
All
Bye.
right. Thanks. Bye.